Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the James Bond movie franchise. This spy-filled action-adventure film series is set to release its 25th entry this April, to be called No Time to Die. Daniel Craig currently plays the main titular hero, but word is this, his 5th movie as the character, will be his last. This, combined with other hints in the new movie storyline, have led to many speculating who the next James Bond will be. We're a long way away from the next movie coming out after the one coming this year, but it is possible something could be set up or teased in this soon coming film, which is coming just a few months from now. But fortunately, we have very good news to report on in the James Bond world. Now, it turns out the rumors and speculation that Bond would be turned into a female are completely unfounded. In fact, one of the movie's producers has even stated so specifically, saying James Bond will never be female. A very strong, bold, and now somewhat controversial thing to say in current year, even though it really shouldn't be the latter. Of course, Bond should remain male. Not only is he a long-established and beloved character who's worked this way for over 60 years, but also Bond has an added addition of being this sort of male icon. Being masculine, loving the ladies, and being strong and a good dude are all core principles to the James Bond character, so messing with that too much would fundamentally change everything, which would result in an unrecognizable character who might as well go by a different name. Nevertheless, many SJWs of course hoped and prayed Bond could be at least gender bent, and at most they'd probably want him turned into a female alphabet person with some kind of disability too. But really, last summer this Bond is going female story was all the hype, mainly because a few plot points were being vague and were being misunderstood. Basically, over time we've discovered that while there isn't a new Bond in the new movie, there is a new secret agent who seems to be taking James's place. According to the story, James Bond leaves the spy business in the previous film, so by the time this new one starts, we'll see him as being semi-retired, and probably at some point he will meet a new agent who has taken his place. That brings us to this actress named Lashana Lynch, who hails from the Captain Marvel film. And if that doesn't tell you enough already, let's dive into her character deeper. Lashana plays a new character in James Bond called Nami, or Nomi, I'm not sure. And her replacing James in the spy field is what led to the speculation she's taking over the series completely too. But come to find out, that was just very wishful thinking by the radical and race and gender obsessed leftists. Really goes to show that they're never really happy either. I mean, Nomi does take Bond's place, and even possibly she could be using his former codename 007, but I guess they also wanted James out of the picture completely too, and they wanted the whole project lady rebooted and blackwashed as well. At least Nami is a new character from what I could tell though, but we can't say the same about other black characters in this new film, who are noteworthy because they are blackwashing classic Bond figures like, say, Moneypenny, for example. This secretary assistant-like character became rather noteworthy over the years too, not only for being a rather talented and resourceful asset for our main character Bond, but also Moneypenny becomes an on and off again love interest for our hero too. And up until 2012, for about 50 years, Moneypenny was played by white British women. That was until the series blackwashed her, replacing her with the actress Naomi Harris in the Skyfall film. Then another notably blackwashed character in Bond is one that goes by the name of Felix. Felix is an American CIA character in the series, and he's also a longtime fan favorite too. And up until 2006, he was also played by white actors, albeit European descendant American ones usually. That was until Jeffrey Wright took over for this last phase of films starting in 2006. Now, there was also one other black Felix in the 1983 Bond film, Never Say Never Again, made by a different studio, but that doesn't really negate what I'm saying. My point is, current modern James Bond films are already heavily diverse, and they're influenced by progressive anti-white agendas that call for the blackwashing of everything. They've blackwashed a number of main characters over the years, but as we well know by now, when it comes to SJWs, they're really never satisfied. They won't be happy until every white and male and straight person in this movie and in Hollywood are completely removed from the business and taken out of TV, film, video games, and pop culture. You name it. This is of course proven by the fact that they still cry about wanting more so-called representation in this series, even though that premise is already getting exhausting. Next, let's turn back to the story of today now. A longtime Bond producer recently said the title character will never be female, so surely many feminists and social justice activists are getting triggered. Before we get to their salty liberal tears though, let's first check out some articles to see more about the situation and what was actually said. The LA Times has an interesting article on it. It's called James Bond Producer 007 Can Be of Any Color But Never a Woman. Notice how Bond is surrounded by minorities now now in this picture below, and already it's all black females surrounding him in this movie, but the left just never gets enough and has to take it one step further. So let's check out where this article goes then. A woman is at the helm of the James Bond film franchise, but 007 will never be a woman as long as she's in charge. That sounds ominous. In an interview with Variety released Wednesday, Barbara Broccoli, who inherited control of the spy saga with her half-brother Michael G. Wilson in the 1990s, shared her thoughts on what the next Bond could look like. And while she's open to some diversification, a female Bond is where she draws the line. He can be of any color, but he is male, Broccoli told Variety. I believe we should be creating new characters for women, strong female characters. I'm not particularly interested in taking a male character and having a woman play it. I think women are far more interesting than that. Well put, Miss Broccoli. She's making great points already. And although she is admittedly caving in on diversity or race, but at the same time, holding her ground and keeping Bond male is still welcomed despite that. It's also worth noting that Barbara Broccoli here not only has a cool name, but she's also led a very cool life, working in the Bond film series since she was 17. Her father produced and put together the original Bond films too, even leading the franchise up until the 1990s when he handed it over to his children. This means a lot actually, because to me, I see it as their children having more of an investment in this property. Typically, producers and behind the scenes people come and go quite often, and the fact that the James Bond films have stayed in the care of one or two families for over 60 years, well, I'm willing to bet that's a big part of the reason it's been so successful and had so much longevity too. Shame on this reporter writing this article who seems to be hinting at the need to fire Barbara here for daring to say Bond will stay male. The way this writer says as long as she's in charge implies they shouldn't be in charge anymore, since Barb is not caving into SJW pressure, and then they try and slander Broccoli and her brother too for inheriting the business from their father, as if that automatically disqualifies them. And sure, many rich people have handed over their companies to their incompetent children, but Barbara here has more than proven her worth and credibility over the decades. She started producing Bond in 1995 with GoldenEye, fostering in the Pierce Brosnan Renaissance era of the series. Then Barbara brought in Daniel Craig in 2006, leading them to produce Skyfall and Spectre together, two of the highest grossing films in the whole series and some of the biggest earners of movies of all time. So needless to say, Barbara Broccoli knows her shit, and this article's petty attempts to discredit her all lead back to disagreements about forced diversity and girl washing a beloved main character and film and pop culture icon. In the buzz leading up to the spring release of the next Bond film, No Time to Die, many speculated that Captain Marvel actress Lashana Lynch would succeed Daniel Craig as the sophisticated MI6 agent. Amid a flurry of rumors sparked by her casting, the first official trailer for the highly anticipated sequel did eventually confirm Lynch's status as a new 00, but not that 00. The world's moved on, Commander Bond. Lynch's know me tells the veteran operative in the trailer. So stay in your lane. You get in my way, I will put a bullet in your knee. Gosh, that just seems so cringy to me. When these girls try and act badass like this, especially when they're doing it in the faces of classic male characters, with this obvious feminist anti-male flair too. Reminds me of what's happening to Thor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's getting more and more surrounded by females and minorities every movie, even culminating in his next upcoming project, which is now going to have a female Thor taking over too. Now, that's not to say girls can't be cool or badass, but they should really focus on doing it in their own ways and gaining respect on their own merits. But instead, writers in SJW projects like this, they think it's cool to prop up their feminist characters by constantly having them shit on the male ones. This just makes the girls look weak and insecure though, and like they're some kind of bully who fears the men, and thus they try and slam them for no reason. And I would love to have some more great female leads in this too, but let's be honest, I don't think Lashana Lynch is going to pull this off. Instead of getting a sexy, in shape, ravishing female with a good personality, we get Nami, a short-haired, boyish-looking mean person who shits on her predecessor for no good reason. Judging by Broccoli's recent comments, it's safe to say a promotion to 007 isn't and never was in the cards for Lynch or de Armas. However, the producer was open to evolving the brand in other ways. While the Bond films so far have always debuted in theaters, Broccoli entertained the idea of a future installment potentially landing on a streaming service like Netflix. We make these films for the audiences, she said. We like to think that they're going to be seen primarily on the big screen. But having said that, we have to look to the future. Our fans are the ones who dictate how they want to consume their entertainment. I don't think we can rule anything out because it's the audience that will make those decisions, not us. Well, that sounds promising too, I guess, although it isn't very surprising in this day and age. Any movie can end up coming out on a streaming service at this point. Martin Scorsese just produced a big hit himself called The Irishman for Netflix. conflicts, a move which I think really solidifies the legitimacy of that medium now. Another good thing worth noting here is the casting of Ana de Armas as the new Bond girl for this film. She's briefly mentioned in this section, and I say she's a welcomed addition to this cast. Not only is she a proven and capable actress, she's also, of course, strikingly beautiful, and having a hot Bond girl is another major tradition for this franchise. So seeing them keep up with that is another good sign, and it means this movie could still be good. I'm sure there was temptation and lobbies saying this Bond girl should be a minority or alphabet person too, or maybe they even wanted him to be a dude. So yeah, to see the series hold on to another position's tradition is definitely welcome. Yes, it really appears James Bond is in good hands so far, especially the way the movie series is going now. And what I love best about this little controversy is Barbara Broccoli is a female saying this too. It really gives her bit about he'll never be female an extra kick to it. Had a male said this, he would obviously be considered sexist and probably even be fired or blacklisted. But a woman and longtime producer and proven and accomplished caretaker for the series said this, so it makes it even harder for the left to clap back. And also it goes to show that not all women are crazy and deluded with SJW politics, which is how things seem to be on the internet these days, especially in relation to Hollywood. Lastly, we also have to commend Barbara again for making the right assessment and suggestion about female characters. Make new original ones, or even reboot or remake projects that already have female leads. Clearly that's a better choice than trying to girl wash or lady reboot everything. Not only is that tactic proven not to work, like how it failed with lady reboots like Ghostbusters 2016, Ocean's 8, and Batwoman, which all were disasters and terrible, but also it just makes more sense to make girls their own characters. If you want to have a cool and badass spy film with a leading lady, changing Bond to a girl is just too lazy and obvious and such a clearly bad choice. Not only is it cheap and easy, it's also disrespectful to the character and series and to the fans as well. Not to mention, most male characters are designed to be masculine and have male attributes, particularly James Bond, who, as we've said, he's a guy's guy, a manly man, and a masculine hero, and also a male film icon. So it's hard to even compare him to another character because nothing really goes on this long or has been this popular. But for now, for argument's sake, let's take a moment and compare this franchise to another popular franchise that's instead led by a female. Underworld is a movie from 2003 that was a reasonable hit at the time. Starring Kate Beckinsale, this series developed a cult following, turning it into a 5-film series and a 16-year run so far. And I bring this up not to be random, but just to propose a contrasting casting swap and show you how ridiculous it would really be. Just imagine replacing or rebooting a series like this with a male lead instead. First of all, that would never happen because gender swapping female to male roles is absolutely not a thing. In fact, SJWs would not ironically protest against it, proving their own hypocrisy in the process. Also, Underworld wouldn't be nearly as popular if it didn't have a hot female lead character like Kate Beckinsale at the helm. Sure, we could get a cool dude in it, but this is a genre made for males, and a lot of the draw for this project is because it has a hot girl lead. Next, it wouldn't make sense for the characters to have this kind of swap. Male and female characters are naturally written pretty differently, and gender swapping them completely warps the premise beyond recognition. And much like how James Bond is a man's man and a masculine badass, so too is Beckinsale's Celine character in the Underworld, only of course she's a female's female and a badass in the female direction. Sure, she kicks ass too, and she's also sexy and cool and feminine and amazing, but also there's just a different vibe seeing a woman with a smaller frame being this badass and taking on these kinds of big fights. Sure, sometimes it can go wrong and look forced, but when they pull it off, girls like this look even more incredible because they have to win their battles despite having obvious physical disadvantages. What do you guys think about this story? Does it make sense when the James Bond producer said James will never be a girl? And when will the SJW stop with this constant nagging and want and need to gender swap everything? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.